Hey guys, I'm here today with an amazing mother. Her name is Elizabeth Gerald. Just a little bit about Elizabeth Gerald. She is the founder of Marcie's movement, which addresses mental health concerns, stressors. She'll talk a little bit more about Marcie's movement. She's the mother of three. She's the mother of Zaria, Hamari,
Hmm.
Marcie. Okay, great. And she's also an
Hmm.
advocate. Elizabeth's daughter,
Hmm.
Marcie, was a vibrant young lady, a honor roll student. She played in the band. She played a musical instrument.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And
Yeah. And school band.
in the school band, and she was even looking into doing
Mhm.
a possible TV series. So she was a vibrant person. Everybody loved her because they knew she loved life. Her love of life always shined through until one day while walking home from school, she was actually attacked and raped by a 300-pound man. Things changed for Marcie's life. They changed for her family's life. And the trauma that was actually caused um, by this event, the trauma that was caused by this event actually caused Marcie to start missing out on social events, stop being as engaged as she once was, stop going, change,
Right.
finding alternative school measures. It got to a point, the trauma was so deep until she would actually, during bathing time, scrub her skin raw. She sought help. She actually found a hospital that she could possibly be admitted to with a psychiatric ward, but with overcrowding, we know the high demand for mental health. And this was 10 years ago. This was pre-pandemic. With the over um, demand, overcrowding of mental health institutions, hospitals, it took Marcie a year to get a bed. And
Hmm.
at the time the bed was available, it was too late. Marcie died by suicide, um,
Hmm.
waiting for support. And so her mother, Elizabeth Gerald, who is a huge humanitarian, she's already won the presidential award. She's already has celebrities and community leaders and etc. working with her, elected officials working with her to make a difference because we don't want to see kids end up in a situation where Marcie was in and they don't have the support that they need to communicate the urgency, the duration,
Hmm.
the frequency of what they're going through. So I'm
Right.
here today talking to Elizabeth Gerald. She's going to tell us about what she's working on right now, which is called Marcie's Law, where she once again has federal and local elected officials working with her to make a difference. So Elizabeth, I just want to say thank you so much for all that you're doing, and
Yes.
your strength,
Yes.
courage, your fortitude to move
Hmm.
forward. So, Elizabeth, can you please first
Hmm.
of all start off telling us about Marcie's Law? What is it?
First, I would like to thank you for having me on your show. I think you're a beautiful person, and I just feel so honored. Every time we speak, it's just like a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much.
And Marcie, don't
Um,
tell people
well,
I paid you to say that.
no, no, this is coming from me. She is a beautiful person. Kelly is really a sweetheart. Um, well, losing a child is one of the hardest things anybody can go through. So I turned my pain into my power, and I started the MJG movement, Marcie Johnny Gerald movement. Um, and as Kelly was saying, I've gotten a presidential award, I've gotten NAACP award. A lot of people have reached out. We're putting together the law, Marcie's Law, and mental health, Save Our Youth mental health tool. We're also working on that. But as far as the law, I have a lot of politicians that's standing behind me to push it. And what that will be is, it's not the rape itself that got her. It did cause her to spiral down because she was beaten and raped. My daughter was maybe 100 pounds. This dude was this big old, 300-pound person. And being sexually assaulted and she was a virgin and beaten, it did spiral her down to depression. And, she just didn't like to get her hair did anymore. She didn't want to get her nails did. She wore dark colored clothes like black, dark blue, dark green, brown colors she would never wear before. She would get jogging suits that were like way too big for her. Um, she was afraid to go outside. She was afraid of males. So the detectives at the Flossmoor Police Department had referred me to Lara Bita. Lara Bita, they didn't get a bed. When they finally did call me back, it was the week after I had buried her. Um, I did find a doctor though, Dr. Summer Masterson, which is a good doctor, but it's really only so much she can do. So what essentially happened was us going to court. And when you have to go to court, you're in a room with the person, even though the person's in front, in the judge, and we sat as far back as we could, but she's still in the same room with him, and he had the options to, he could look back, he could wink, he could smile, laugh, whatever. And it's not just me; it's a lot of people that go through this. The people, victims should not have to go through taunting and being re-traumatized. So as we would go to court, it got to the point where she didn't want to go back, and she's like, "Mom, I can't do it." So we asked for a plea deal, and we got 10 years and life parole. And life parole is that even if he don't register, he's going back for life, because she's not his first, and we figured she wouldn't be the last. So I said my victims impact speech, and went and sat down, and they do give them a chance to speak. And he had told my daughter, if you wasn't so beautiful, I wouldn't have been attracted to you. So you have nobody to blame but yourself. My daughter was 14 when he sexually assaulted her. This dude was like 27, 28, 300 pounds. And he had just gotten out of prison. And that's the thing. He had just gotten out of prison. He didn't have a GPS or nothing on him. He was supposed to register at a halfway house in Chicago, but he didn't. And by his parole officer having so many parolees, they didn't really realize that he hadn't registered until it was too late. He never denied what he did. He admitted to the Flossmoor police. So it was kind of like a slam dunk. It wasn't like they had to do a whole lot of this and that, because it was a slam dunk. It was, he just blamed her. I was attracted to her. I couldn't help myself. So that was his excuse. So we took the plea deal, and after he said that, that's what really triggered my daughter being blamed and victimized over again. So you're telling a 14-year-old, hey, it's your fault that I raped you and I beat you. You shouldn't have been so pretty. You can't do that. So essentially, she ended up taking her life after that, because it was just too much. So that's what happened with her. And after I lost my child, and I would tell people what happened, I would have people in the African American community like, well, hey, aren't you embarrassed to tell people your child died by suicide? Well, committed suicide. And I'm thinking, seeing your child in a casket ain't no joke. What do you mean embarrassed? No, it's my daughter. I mean, she didn't ask to be raped, and she didn't ask for any of this. And what I started realizing, and as I started doing research in our community, we have so many stigmas and taboos. It's like hush, hush about rape, about domestic violence, mental health issues, suicide. I mean, we don't talk about these things. It's like outrage when we talk about a police shooting, or it's outrage when we talk about when the Caucasian people do stuff. But when it's something considered Black on Black, whether it's rape, domestic violence, taunting, gun rights, whatever it is, it's shh. It's like crickets. Nobody says anything. It's like we accept it, and we have to stop that.
Another thing that I have heard is that people will say, we don't want another Black man to go to jail. So they won't talk about an African American male does, because they're so in, or whatever. But the bottom line is they just don't see another African American male go to jail. So people will know some of the challenges, but they won't necessarily talk about it. So I was wondering, with you doing what you're doing now, do you think you're opening the door for more people to talk about what's going on? What has been the difference since you started to get involved in this process?
When I first started, I thought, me being an African-American woman, talking about mental health and suicide, domestic violence, rape, those things, I figured nobody would care because these are stigmas and taboos. But lo and behold, I started out and I would have people inboxing me on Facebook telling me their stories. And it's not just females. I've had a lot of males reach out to me, surprisingly, telling me how they were molested, how they were beaten, how they went through this. And the people, more and more people just started reaching out, and it got to the point where I had gun violence moms started reaching out. But what about us? We heard this, that, and the other. And then moms that have lost to police shootings started reaching out. Hey, I've even had a mom reach out that lost her daughter to AIDS and say, we heard and we need this, and we need unity too. So what essentially happened is my organization has really started growing, and right now, I work with anybody. I work with, not just the sexual assault victims, but I do them. I work with domestic violence victims, gun violence, police shootings, AIDS. It just doesn't matter. Because we all need to come together.
And what do you do for them? Like, first of all, are you a licensed clinician?
No, what we do is we have clinicians, doctors, therapists that I can refer them to. I have both male and female. And what I do is I give them a list of people who they can talk to, and they can make up their mind who they choose to go to, whoever they're comfortable with. So I have doctors, therapists, whoever they need that I can refer them to.
So you're like a resource center.
Right. Yeah. And we do that. So then we also, like for domestic violence victims, I've actually helped house over 200 domestic violence survivors. I've actually helped house, get them into housing, working with different outlets, different low income outlets. I've partnered with them, and I've been able to help over 200 women going through domestic violence. I've been able to, we go out once a week, and we feed homeless families. Christmas, we do Christmas around the world. Last year, we did over 2,000 families. We gave out gift cards, shoes, socks, underwear, clothes, hats, coats, gloves, toys, PJs, books, you name it. We gave it to them, to the different families. And we did Illinois, Georgia, Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, Miami, and Gary, Indiana.
The reason why I asked you that, Elizabeth, is some people will say, well, if you aren't a PhD, a MD, or this, you can't get involved. And the thing is, you're making a difference, without a whole lot of alphabets after your name. So that means more people can get involved. You just have to have the drive and the passion to get it done. Let me ask you this, with regards to Marcie's Law, like what will it actually entail? What is the vision for Marcie's Law?
So one of the actual vision is, I don't think victims or survivors, whatever one you want to call yourself, should have to be in the room. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but like I know for a lot of federal cases, they will have the person not in the room, but they'll be behind like a glass window in a total different room, like the victim and the victim's families will be in the room with the judge, but then the person will be behind the glass window with 2 guards by them. So they can't really talk to nobody because they're just standing there with guards. I think that would be more appropriate, because when a person actually has the option to turn around and watch you and laugh and do all that, that's just more traumatizing. And it's like I said, it's just not my daughter. I've seen this in murder cases. I've seen it in domestic violence cases. I mean, it's just, we're in an era where people just, does not show any compassion, or, it's very inhumane, a lot of stuff people do. I mean, and I've seen people go through worse stuff than what we went through. I mean, they cut you out and stick your middle finger up and laugh. I mean, a lot of times, these people, they really taunt their victims and their victims' families. So my goal is that they don't have to be in a room with them anymore.
One of the things that,
because that's more traumatizing.
One of the things that people may or may not be aware of is that when someone experiences a physical trauma or an emotional trauma, it also causes neuroinflammation. That's why they call it neurodiversity now, instead of just calling it like ADHD, autism. They call it neurodiversity because it's impacting your central nervous system. So there's that, but then there's also, it impacts your immune system. So when it impacts your immune system, if you are experiencing more trauma, your immune system's getting worse, and your central nervous system is getting worse. So it's not just the adverse social behaviors that we see, like the withdrawal and all that other kind of stuff, it's not just psychological. And if we can get out of that mindset of saying everything is psychological to saying, hey, look, you know what, this is an actual physical ailment, that if we don't deal with this trauma, we're heading towards, it's called stiff person syndrome. And stiff person syndrome, it looks like a seizure, but it's a neurological condition that's due to stress, right? We're heading towards aneurysm. Aneurysm is continuous stress that once again causes a blood-brain vessel to break. We're heading towards stroke. We're heading towards diabetes. We're heading towards these conditions, chronic conditions or fatal conditions, if we don't handle the trauma. So continuously expose a victim to his or her abuser is once again continuing to elevate that trauma, continuing to expand the neuroinflammation, continuing to weaken the immune system. So a lot of times people just dismiss it, you know, especially in the African American community or other communities, where they say, hey, look, you know what? Put your big girl panties on, stick your chest out, stop, man up, whatever it is. But it's not so much a matter of man up psychologically, it's a matter of what are you doing to the person internally. There's a little disease, CTE, which football players experience, continuous trauma. And the first thing with concussion is they get an antibiotic because it's dealing with neuroinflammation. And it's also dealing with the immune system. So as you're talking about Marcie's Law, I just want to applaud you and thank you, because a lot of people don't realize that there's a neurological component to it. And it's not just people not manning up, putting on the big girl panties or whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. And you know what's bad in our community is like the victim, no matter what it is, always gets blamed for it. So if it's a rape, what were you wearing? Was your provocative? How'd you have your makeup? It's instead of saying it's the person who raped did fault. You get shot and murdered. Well, you shouldn't have been over there. They should have been in the house. I mean, you could be in your house and a bullet can come in and it's still your fault. I just don't, our community.
You should have been in the other room.
It's like in our community.
Instead on top of the bed.
Right. It's just crazy how in our community we blame, it's always the victim's fault. But when it's a cop or a Caucasian person, they ready to burn the country down. And I just think, we got to get out there. It starts and ends with us. If we don't love us and respect us, nobody else will. It starts and ends with us.
That's what I
see so many Black women saying we need to put our crowns on and help each other, but we are the first ones to dog each other out. Don't nobody hate a Black person more than a Black person. We're the only culture of people that men can grow massive platforms, bad mouthing and dogging out Black women. You don't see, Caucasian men building massive platforms dogging out Caucasian women. And, it's not a color thing or a size or a weight or a race or religion thing. It's a person. You have good and bad in everything, whether it's Black, whether it's white, whether you're police, you're a doctor. I mean, I think a nurse went to jail not too long ago for killing infants. I think it was in Britain or somewhere, but I was reading how they had a nurse who was killing infants. And they're a British white woman, but yet we don't, if that would have been a Black person, it would have been, all over, and we'd have talked about each other. So it's not just Black women are the worst. We all have our faults. Nobody's perfect, and I know, like right now, if you look at pictures of me before I lost my husband and before I lost my daughter, I was maybe a good 50 to 70 pounds lighter, but I started drinking a little bit, and I don't really eat as much like food or whatever, but I would eat like a lot of sweets, like cookies and stuff, and then drinking, and that's when my weight come on. So my weight fluctuates, but I'm still the same person inside. Nobody actually bothered me. Nobody's actually made fun of me. I haven't went through anything like that, but I see where people, they judge you. You're too fat, you're too small, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too this, you're just not right, you're too dark, your skin's too light. If you get your skin light, you're trying to be white, or it just nothing we can do can appease everybody. So one thing I said, you have to start with yourself, start loving yourself, start caring for yourself, start self-care. And it's like the domino effect. Once we start showing each other how to come together as a whole and united and showing love and kindness to one another, I guarantee you the other races will start looking at us
You know,
differently. And
growing
they'll
up,
start advocating for us as different.
that's what it was all about. Like when I would go visit my grandmother's or whatever, it was always about everybody was your cousin. There was so much
Mhm.
love and support, etc.
Exactly.
I think a part of it right now might be that once again, we're not encouraging.
Mhm.
So we can encourage the love, but if we encourage the love for 5 minutes a day, and there's all these other minutes, or we encourage the love for 1 hour and there's 11 hours of hate, it gets really
Mhm.
hard, to make it
Mhm.
consistent. Kind of like when they say go to the church, but when church is over, you walk out the church and you act a fool or something like that.
Exactly.
I think that,
Mhm.
when I grew up, my mom and
Mhm.
dad, they had spades parties or bidwiz. They didn't play spades, they played bidwiz parties at their house every single weekend. And it was an opportunity for their friends,
Mhm.
maybe 6 or 8 couples, to get together and release like those things that happened during the week. They talked about it, they encouraged each other. That was on a Friday, Saturday
Mhm.
night, Sunday, they got together, we did all the
Mhm.
holidays together, but it was repetitive relationship building, etc. And once again, I think right now some of the stuff is
Mhm.
sporadic. So with that being said, how have you been able to garner so much love and support? Did it start with your community? I mean, Jesus said, he went to Nazareth and he could do no man could do good works in his
I've always, I am the same person. I was raised in a loving house. My family, my friends, like I said, back in the day, we were raised like that. So I still have, a lot of people call me old fashioned, but I still have my same virtues. And what I did is the love I received from my family, I put that onto my kids. I could show you a text, my son texts me, I love you so much, mom. And I text him back, I love you more. So I do that with my kids, so they know. My daughter's last words was her last words was, "I love you, mom," and I said, "I love you too." And that a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people are arguing and cussing their kids out. Then they get a phone call or the police knocking at the door telling them they have to come identify the child's body, and then they losing their minds because their last words was, "I hate you." Right, and I tell people, love your kids. I know they get, especially teenagers, they sometimes what make you want to wring their necks, but you have to love your kids. You have to, sometimes just bite the bullet and just really sit down and talk to them, because the same way when we were teenagers, we weren't perfect. You know what I'm saying? We weren't out shooting and carjacking, but talk to your kids, find out what's going on with them. Don't talk at them, talk to them. Don't think because you're the parent, you know everything that's going on. Because a lot of times, the same way our parents did everything we were doing, we don't know everything our children are doing. But you got to raise your kids. You got to show them love. You got to let them know, hey, you can come talk to me about anything. I got your back. I'm your ride or die no matter what. Once they get that type of relationship with you, you will be surprised at how things will change. A lot of these kids are out here doing it because they're not getting the love they feel at home. And then you have a lot of parents that tell them, hey, you better do what you got to do. I was watching a news thing, a news series yesterday, and they were talking about homeless teenagers. And I'm thinking, and the first one I said homeless teenagers, I'm thinking maybe 17, 18, 19. We're talking about 12, 13, 14-year-old kids homeless in Chicago, but it's a worldwide thing. And I'm like, well, how is kids that young being homeless? Where are their parents at? And what essentially happened was people get tired and they put their kids out, and nobody's reporting to the police. Nobody's reporting to the DCFS or CPS or whatever it is. So we have kids on the street, and what do you think these kids are doing? They're hungry, so they're going to steal. They're going to rob. They're going to carjack because they're hungry. They feel worthless, useless. You know what I'm saying? So we have to do better. And I'm not just talking about in the Black culture, whatever, we just got to do better.
Marcie,
You know,
this is going to cut off in less than about 5-6 minutes. So what I wanted to ask you two things. One, how did you garner the support? How did you get all these people to rally around you? Because what I was saying beforehand is a lot of times people can't get the support in their own hometown, right? That's number one. And then number two, and you can list some of the celebrities or people that you have in line. And then number two, what does Marcie do to take care of Marcie? Like, I hear you giving so much love to the community, but how are you making sure that you're taking care of Marcie? And then number three, if you could, and you could give us number three right now, just tell us how to get in touch with you if people want to get involved and show support. So if you can give me one, how to get
Okay.
involved with you. Two, how did you garner the support that you have? And then three, what are you doing to take care of you? There we go.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a Facebook. I'm Elizabeth Gerald, Gerald, TF for Team Family. It's a cartoon. Actually, my comic book is my face profile for Facebook, Elizabeth Gerald TF, and it's a comic book. For IG, I believe it's the THE_MJG movement. And it's still the same comic book profile. And then I also have an MJG movement page on Facebook. Once again, I'm Elizabeth Gerald TF on Facebook, the_MJG movement for IG, and MJG movement Facebook page. Those are ways you can contact me. As far as how I was able to get support, I was consistent. And the thing is, when my daughter first died, we lived in a very nice neighborhood. So unfortunately for me, we had judges, we had lawyers. A lot of people in my neighborhood worked for Oprah. We had a lot of people that worked for Steve Harvey in my neighborhood. So my neighbors actually kind of helped too. So when my daughter first died, they started doing interviews. Then, the big newspaper started calling, wanting to do interviews. Then the news channels wanted to do interviews. So the more interviews that came out, the more people started reaching out. So it was Jet Magazine, then it was rolling out, then it was this, then it was that. So as more articles started to come out, you kind of start going viral. And even though it wasn't like, spread all over Facebook and IG, because it wasn't doing viral like that 10 years ago, 8 years ago, it just started going viral through, all the articles. And then when people would, just like they reached out to Trayvon's mom and all the other moms, people started reaching out, hey, I would like to partner with you, telling me their stories. I mean, I've done stuff with Jennifer Lewis. I've been almost every TV show. I've had a chance to meet Oprah. Somewhat everybody, so that's how it just happened. And then once, you start kind of going viral, then the politicians start wanting to work with you. Hey, what about this? What about that? So that's pretty much how it is. And then me being consistent and just really pushing and just being a voice and, doing what I do, that's kind of helped me out a lot. And then as far as me taking care of myself, like I said, I love myself. I'm always the same person. I meditate, I pray before I do anything, before I even get my grandkids up for school. I light my candles and I just sit there and, I meditate for about 45 minutes and then, and then I do my prayer. And I think that's what helps. And, I just ask God to keep me covered and, I just, it's the best way to be as far as, taking care of myself. Yeah. And I stay busy. When you lose a child,
she does. Yes, she does. Yes, yes. You can say that again.
When you lose a child, if you don't stay busy, what happens is you'll sit in the house and that guilt, that hurt, and that pain will eat you up till you end up with cancer. So many people who lost a child ends up dying of cancer or other elements because of that grief. Grief will kill you. So when I watch.
And do you find that sometimes you don't have time for the minutia? Like, you want to be in an environment where things happen. Like, instead of sitting back talking about some of the other stuff, I mean, like, you like things of substance, things that are going to make a difference, impact lives.
Right.
Keep going.
So yeah, and so like I said, when you lose a child, people who don't get out and do nothing, they always end up sick with health problems. They always end up in a mental hospital. They just don't do it. But when you stay, you stay busy, you stay focused, and you don't have time to just sit up and feel sorry. Oh, poor woman's me. You're busy, and you're able to just really, stay healthier that way. I think that's the best way to put it.
And you're taking in new things and you have something new to talk about.
And then you're actually helping other people.
Then all you're doing is recycling the old stuff, right?
Exactly. And
I get bored with myself. I'm like, Kelly, can't you bring something new in? I'm tired of that. So yeah, being in other crowds, being,
and that helps. That really does help.
Things. One of the things I was reading recently is that oh God, I think it's like OSF, St. Paul Hospital, St. Francis Hospital in Illinois. What they were saying is that 40% of the medical clinicians are, I believe it's psychiatry, are actually near retirement age. So if they're near retirement age, then they've got a lot of old stuff going on. You've got a lot of younger people who are committing suicide, it was like for male physicians, it's like a 30% higher rate than the general population. For females, it's like 30 or 40%, and for females, like 130% higher than the general population. So you've got a high rate of suicide amongst the younger people, 300 to 400 suicides per year from physicians, and you've got older people who are, who are just who may be recycling things that they've heard in the past. You've got to be the one to infuse something new, because if you're not infusing something new, they're going to treat you the way they treated, grandma and great grandma.
Exactly. I agree. So that's why I'm out every day doing what I can, whether it's feeding the homeless or, like it was about maybe a month ago, I did a march, and I got mamas who lost to suicide, mamas who've lost to gun violence. We just marched around Chicago, to show love and support for one another. We got, and G. Herbal actually came out, and he said, I shouldn't be over here. And I said, why? He says, because I'm into it with the different gangs he's into it with. But he came and marched with us. Lil Durk came and marched with us because they both lost brothers to gun violence. So I do a lot of stuff like that. And then when people hear about it, and funny thing about it, when a couple of restaurants that asked what we were doing, I told them, they said, well, when you guys get done, if they want free food, tell them come here and we'll give them free food. And they did.
That's what I'm talking about, that community love. I mean, when we come together, so much more happens, because guess what? Now it's also building people up, those conversations you're hearing, you're motivating one another, you're supporting one another while you're breaking bread.
Yep.
Right. Those things where the community starts to get involved. And like you said, I mean, you're very blessed to have a platform, have neighbors who have that type of media exposure, have politicians who are ready, willing, and able to get involved. I mean, it is fire, the platform that God has provided for you to get the word out. Your next event where people can get involved or how they can help, what is the next event?
The next big event will be Christmas Around the World, and then I'm starting the mental health tour, Save Our Youth. Those are the next two events. You can reach out to me, for Christmas Around the World. If you want to donate a toy, a coat, or something, you can. For actually want to come out and pass out stuff, you're more than welcome. And for the mental health tour, we're going to need vendors, sponsors, investors. We're going to need people to come set up. We're going to need people the helpline locations, pretty much the works.
And just one more thing, it looks like we might have a minute left. Marcie's Law, how can they help you with Marcie's Law?
Once we start pushing forward, I'll start sending out things, saying, hey, vote, or, I'll start pushing out more stuff for people. Excuse me?
You'll contact me?
Yes.
And I will help people with contacting their congressman, like maybe there's a
in their states
that we can give, and we can
in their local states.
All right, cool. Well, it looks like we have less than 1 minute left. Elizabeth, I just want to say thank you so much for your commitment and passion. I want to say thank you to the community around you that is supporting you, enabling you to do amazing things. And I just want to say, I thank God for giving you purpose and vision.
Yes, and I thank you for having me on this show. I appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you.
Well, we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch. Love you.
Love you too. Bye-bye.